The triumph of success could sometimes feel like a cage. Elena Morales smoothed a hand over the folds of her midnight blue gown, the silk whispering against her legs as she stepped out of the town car. The Riverside Grand's entrance gleamed beneath a canopy of gold lights, its revolving doors ushering in the city's finest. Inside, the grand ballroom shimmered with crystal chandeliers and an orchestra's soft overture. Tonight wasn't her night, it was her younger sister Adriana's engagement celebration. And yet, as Elena crossed the marble floor toward the reception area, her stomach tightened with that familiar achy dread that had nothing to do with public speaking or business negotiations. At 29, she had built something extraordinary from the ground up. Her dessert brand, Sugar and Bloom, had gone from a humble stall at weekend markets to for thriving storefronts across the city. Her handcrafted confections were featured in glossy lifestyle spreads. Critics raved about her inventive flavor combinations. Social media influencers fought for a photo with her signature lavender honey tart. She had staff she trusted, loyal customers who lined up before opening, and revenue projections any entrepreneur would envy. But none of that seemed to matter when she walked into family gatherings alone. The chatter in the ballroom, the instant Elena stepped through the ballroom doors, she felt a prickling heat at the back of her neck, the subtle shifting of heads, the murmurs that never quite stayed hushed. She caught the fragments as she passed clusters of guests. She's lovely, but still no one special in her life? Too focused on business? Maybe. It's such a shame she's not getting any younger. Her mother, Carmen Rels, was on her in seconds. Carmen had perfected a certain smile over the years, warm enough for the public eye, but laced with a private edge. She leaned in, air-kissing both her daughter's cheeks. "Elena, Carrico, you look stunning," Carmen said, her tone both admiring and expectant. "I was hoping maybe you'd bring someone tonight. Adriana's friends are all here with their partners." Before Eleanor could answer, her Aunt Isabel materialized like a hawk, spotting prey flute of champagne in one hand, the other gesturing theatrically. 29 and still no ring, Isabel declared, just loud enough to draw the attention of those within earshot. "In my day, women knew how to balance career and family. Maybe you're spending too much time with what is it?" Frosting. Elena's smile was practiced, smooth as the fondant she worked with daily. "The bakery is doing incredibly well, Aunt Isabel. We've just opened our 4th location." Her mother's hand landed lightly but firmly on her arm. "Business success is nice, dear, but it won't hold you when you're old, or give you children. Look at Adriana, she found her perfect match at 24, the perfect sister, and the ghost from the past." As if summoned, Adriana floated toward them in a champagne silver gown that caught the light like moonlit water. She was radiant, arm tucked inside the arm of her fiancé, Daniel Serrano. "Eleanor, you made it." Adriana's embrace was warm, genuine. She'd always been the kinder sister, the one who cheered Elena's victories instead of diminishing them. Daniel extended his hand with a smile that seemed sincere. "The famous pastry queen, Adriana, is always talking about your desserts. I can't wait to have you cater our wedding." For a moment, Elena felt a rare flicker of belonging until a sharp, familiar laugh sliced through the music hut. Her breath caught. Standing near the bar, one arm draped around a petite blonde whose diamond ring glittered like a disco ball, was Liam Carter, Liam, man she dated for 2 years, the man who had broken her heart just 6 months earlier. His reason: she was married to her work and would never put family first. Her mother spotted him instantly, her eyes brightening. "Oh, there's Liam. Such a shame it didn't work out between you two. He looks so happy now." Before Eleanor could retreat, Liam had noticed the group and was already making his way over, his fiancée in tow. His gait was confident, smug, like a man walking into a meeting he knew he'd already won. "Elena," he greeted her with mock warmth. "You look well. Business keeping you as busy as always?" The blonde extended a hand, smile polished to perfection. "I'm Vanessa. Liam's told me so much about you. Congratulations on the bakery. It must be fulfilling to have your work be your whole life." The barb was wrapped in silk, but Elena felt it all the same. Vanessa's diamond flashed as she spoke, a sparkling reminder of what Elena supposedly lacked. Some people are meant for different paths, Liam added, voice dripping with condescension. Vanessa understands compromise. She's cutting back her work after the wedding. Her mother nodded approvingly. How wonderful. That's exactly the kind of balance Elena needs to learn. The breaking point. As if the scene needed more players. Cousin Patricia and her husband Tom drifted in, faces set in polite pity. Maybe you should try dating apps, Patricia suggested, as though Elena hadn't already heard that one 100 times. My friend met her husband that way. Of course, she was 25, so. Tom offered a sage nod. Career women have it tough. Men want someone who can make them a priority. Round her, voices swelled with theories about her love life-year lack there flared over whispered rumors about rejected proposals and misplaced priorities. She could feel Liam's satisfaction radiating like heat, his arm tightening round Vanessa's waist. Well, he said loudly enough for the group. Nothing wrong with being married to your career, right, Elena? Her chest tightened. The walls of the ballroom fell closer with every word. Escape to the garden. She excused herself without meeting anyone's eyes and pushed through the doors to the garden terrace. Cool night air hit her flushed skin, carrying the scent of jasmine and city breeze. Lanterns glowed softly along winding paths, casting gold light over the fountain at the center. Elena found a bench tucked behind a hedged archway and sank down, letting the rush of water soothe her raw nerves. Her phone bootsed a text from Adriana. Where did you go? People are asking. For a moment, she considered slipping out entirely, going home to her apartment above the bakery, maybe pouring a glass of wine and planning tomorrow's orders. At least the ovens never judged her. The stranger in the shadows. Rough night. The deep, velvet voice startled her. She turned to see a tall man in a flawlessly tailored black suit emerging from the shadows. Even in the dim light, she could see his strong jawline, the dark sweep of his hair, and eyes an uncommon shade of green. He belonged on the cover of a business magazine, not strolling casually through a hotel garden. I didn't realize anyone else was out here, she said quickly, brushing at her cheeks. Please, don't apologize, he replied, stopping a respectful distance away. I'm the one intruding. Mind if I sit? The party inside feels a bit much. Something in his tone suggested he understood exactly how she felt. Elena nodded, curiosity pricking through her exhaustion. He sat at the far end of the bench, close enough for conversation, but leaving her space. Up close, the refinement of his features was undeniable. But there was something else, an air of quiet confidence, a familiarity she couldn't place. I'm Adrian Knight, he said simply. Elena Morales, she replied, then added with a wry twist of her lips, the family disappointment currently hiding in the garden. His laugh was warm, genuine. That's quite a title. What did you do to earn it? The unforgivable sin of being 29, successful, and single, she said, half joking, half bitter. Apparently, that makes me a cautionary tale. Successful how? He asked Eden. There was no polite veneer to it. He seemed truly interested. I own a small chain of bakeries. Well, for locations now, we do custom desserts, artisanal pastries. His brows lifted. That's impressive. Building something from nothing takes talent and grit. The simple acknowledgement struck her deeper than she expected. Thank you. Most people see it as proof I can't prioritize properly. Most people, Adrian said with an easy certainty, are idiots. For the first time all evening, Elena laughed febrile and unguarded. They sat in a comfortable silence, the music from the ballroom drifting faintly through the night air. She found herself studying him, wondering what had brought him here, to her sister's engagement party. Of all places, his suit, she noticed, probably cost more than her monthly rent. And what about you? She asked. How do you know my family? A small, knowing smile tugged at his mouth. Business connection with the groom's family, though I have to admit the company out here is far better than inside. The soft garden light painted Adrian's features in warm amber, catching the faint glint in his green eyes. Before Elena could press him further, the crunch of footsteps on gravel interrupted the quiet. From round the corner came Liam, His face ranged in a smug sort of curiosity. The proprietary tone in his voice was immediate. "There you are," he said, as if she were his to find. "People were wondering where you disappeared to." Adrian stood smoothly, and Elena realized he was taller than Liam by several inches. The air between them shifted sharp and charged as though an unspoken contest had begun. "I don't believe we've met," Adrian said pleasantly, though there was steel under the velvet. "Liam Carter," Liam replied, extending his hand with all the confidence of a man used to being the more impressive presence in a conversation. "And you are Adrian Knight." The name seemed to hang in the air for a moment before it landed. Eleanor saw it hit Liam like a sudden wave of recognition. Disbelief, the dawning awareness that he was face to face with one of the most powerful men in the tech industry. Adrian Knight, founder of Nightlink, the social platform that had transformed online networking and communication. A man whose net worth was reported in terms that made financial analysts dizzy. Business magazines called him a visionary, billionaires called him competition, and he was standing in the garden, talking to her as though she were the most fascinating person at the party. The social shift. Liam's voice caught for half a second before smoothing out. "Nightlink is impressive. I've been following your company's new privacy initiatives." "Great work." "Thank you," Adrian said mildly, "though tonight I'm more interested in discussing Elena's bakery expansion than my own projects." Liam blinked, clearly thrown. "You're what?" Adrian's glance toward Eleanor was brief but deliberate. "She's building something remarkable. 4 thriving locations, a unique product line, exceptional customer loyalty. That kind of entrepreneurial talent is rare." The words, so calmly delivered, did something to her like a warm current beneath cold water. "I should get back to Vanessa," Liam muttered after a pause, retreating toward the ballroom with far less swagger than he'd arrived. When they were alone again, Ellen exhaled. "You're that Adrian Knight." "The Adrian Knight." "Guilty," he said, with a half smile that was somehow both self-deprecating and confident. "Does it change how you see me?" She searched his face, expecting to find the arrogance so often worn by men of his status. Instead, she saw the same steady warmth he'd shown before she knew who he was. "It explains why you understand the grind of building something from nothing," she admitted. "But it makes me wonder what's a man like you really doing at my sister's engagement party." The quiet truth. Adrian's smile deepened, but his tone grew more serious. "Daniel's father invested in one of my first companies, gave me a chance when I needed it most. When Daniel mentioned his fiancée's sister was running a bakery chain, I got curious." Her brows rose. "Curious? I know more about sugar and bloom than you might guess," he said. "Your designs are innovative, your models sound, and your reputation with customers is enviable. I've been watching your work with professional interest." A thrill ran through her that she tried to mask. Professional interest. "Planning to invest in pastries now?" "I invest in people," Adrian corrected. "The industry matters less than the mind and heart driving it." Before she could respond, voices floated closer from the ballroom. Her mother appeared at the head of a small procession, and Isabel, Adriana, cousin Patricia, and a few others, all clearly having noticed Liam's return without her. "Elena, there you are," Carmen said, her voice tinged with both relief and mild irritation. "You can't just vanish from your sister's party." Adriana reached her first, her expression apologetic. "I told them you might be getting some air, but you know how they are." The claim. Adrian straightened to his full height as the group arrived. Something about the way he carried himself calm, assured common attention. "Everyone," Elena began, "this is Adrian." Carmen extended her hand with a smile reserved for important introductions. "Are you a friend of Daniel's family?" "Actually," Adrian said clearly, "I'm here with Eleanor." The sentence dropped into the garden like a pebble into still water, small, but sending ripples everywhere. "With Elena," Carmen repeated, her voice cautious. "You mean as her date?" Adrian's arm slid gently to Elena's lower back, the touch warm and steady. "I mean as her boyfriend." Her pulse jumped. She should have corrected him. should have said they'd only just met, but something in the way he said it, in the calm certainty in his eyes, made her hold her tongue. How long have you two been together? Aunt Isabel asked, incredulous. 6 months, Adrian said smoothly, his thumb tracing a subtle circle against her back. We wanted to keep things private until we were sure. Adriana's face lit up. Eleanor, you didn't tell me? Elena values her privacy, Elena heard herself say, falling into the lie with surprising ease. The recognition. What do you do, Adrian? Carmen asked, eyes narrowing slightly. I work in technology, he said modestly. But Patricia, phone in hand, was already typing. A sharp inhale escaped her a moment later. Adrian Knight, she breathed. You're the founder of Nightlink. Suddenly, the rest of the group was pulling out their phones, their faces shifting from polite curiosity to open astonishment. Net worth 12 billion, Tom murmured. Time magazine's most influential under 40. Isabel added, her earlier dismissal evaporating. Numbers and titles seemed to swirl around them, but Adrian stayed composed. Numbers are just numbers. What matters is finding someone who sees past them. His fingers intertwined with Elena's. The gesture felt so natural it startled her. How did you meet? Adriana asked, eyes shining. Adrian looked at her with a warmth so convincing it almost made Elena forget they were pretending. She was catering an event for a business partner. I'd tried her chocolate so full and knew I had to meet the artist behind it. The story was so plausible, so flattering to her craft, that even Carmen seemed momentarily won over. For a moment, the group seemed suspended between surprise and calculation, the sound of the ballroom muted by the weight of Adrian's words. Eleanor could feel the warmth of his hand at her back, grounding her even as her mind spun. It was then that Liam returned, Vanessa trailing half a step behind with a look that suggested she'd rather be anywhere else. His earlier swagger was gone, replaced with a subtle sharpness in his gaze. Knight, Liam said, as if testing the name. I was just thinking about your renewable energy investments. Fascinating diversification. Adrian's smile was polite, but cool enough to frost glass. Thank you. Though tonight, I'd prefer to talk about Elena's plans for her bakery. She's considering launching a catering division, an ambitious, but well-timed move for a brand with her reputation. The mention of catering hit its target. Liam's eyes flickered. Elena knew he remembered how he'd once dismissed her plans for expansion as fantasies better left in a notebook. The shift in power. Catering, Vanessa repeated, eyebrows arching. That sounds bold. Elena thinks big, Adrian said, his arm tightening slightly at her waist. It's one of the things I admire most about her. The word admire was enough to make her pulse jump. But the way Liam flinched at it was its own quiet satisfaction. I always knew she was special, Liam said weakly, attempting to recover ground. We dated for 2 years. After all, yes, Adrian said mildly, she mentioned you. Ancient history, thankfully. The dismissal was so casual it left Liam momentarily speechless. Vanessa's grip on his arm tightened, her eyes narrowing as if silently urging him to drop the subject. The maternal invitation. Carmen, who had been unusually quiet, stepped forward. Adrian, you must come to Sunday dinner next week. I insist on getting to know you properly. I'd be honored, Mrs. Morales, Adrian replied without hesitation. Though I should warn you, ain't completely gone over your daughter. You might have to repeat yourself if I get too distracted looking at her. The words were delivered with such smooth sincerity that even Elena felt her cheeks warm. You're embarrassing me, she murmured under her breath, though a reluctant smile tugged at her lips. Good, he said softly, leaning in just enough that only she could hear. You're beautiful when you blush. The social turnaround. By the time Adrian gently suggested they return for the cake cutting, whispers were already beginning to spread through the ballroom. As Adrian offered his arm and she took it, Elena felt the stares that followed a far cry from the pitying glances she'd endured earlier. The shift was immediate and dizzying. Guests who had barely acknowledged her before were now stopping her mid-step, their smiles bright and eager. Entrepreneurs mentioned collaborations they'd never considered before. Society women hinted at future catering opportunities for events that had always gone to her competitors. Through it all, Adrian stayed close, his presence both a shield and an amplifier. When someone pushed too aggressively for a meeting or a favor, he deflected with charm. Elena's calendar fills quickly. He told one persistent investor, her work is in high demand, so she chooses her clients carefully. The protective tone was subtle, but it did something to hear a quiet reassurance that she wasn't just being paraded as an accessory. Gratitude and questions. Even as the night transformed in her favor, confusion threaded through Elena's gratitude. Adrian's performance was flawless, but his motives remained a mystery. Why had he done it? What did he hope to gain? Still, one thing was undeniable. For the first time in years, her family was looking at her with something other than disappointment. That glow of pride, however, it had been sparked, it was intoxicating. 3 hours into the engagement party, Elena finally managed to escape the swirl of music, champagne, and eager conversations. She'd spent most of the evening fielding congratulations for accomplishments her family had only just decided to acknowledge, thanks to Adrian's sudden and convincing declaration of being her boyfriend. Now, the cool night air on the hotel's rooftop was a bomb. Below them, the city glittered like a blanket of fallen stars. The hum of traffic was softened by distance, replaced by the occasional gust of wind that lifted loose strands of her hair. Adrian leaned against the terrace railing, his black suit sharp against the warm glow of rooftop lanterns. "You've been smiling for hours," he said, his voice low. "But that's not the same as enjoying yourself." She turned toward him, tucking her clutch under her arm. "This has been surreal, and I'm grateful for what you did back there, Adrian. But I need to understand something. What exactly is going on?" The easy, confident expression he'd worn downstairs shifted, becoming something quieter, almost vulnerable. "You're right," he said after a beat. "You deserve the truth. The beginning you never saw. I wasn't entirely honest earlier about how I knew you were here tonight," he continued. "Daniel didn't just happen to mention you. I asked about you." Her brow furrowed. "Why would you ask about me? We've never even met." Adrian reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out a neatly folded clipping from a newspaper. He held it out, and when she opened it, her breath caught. It was a feature article from 6 months ago. Local entrepreneur rises above adversity. Beneath the headline was a photo of her in the bakery kitchen, her apron dusted with flour as she placed the final touches on an elaborate wedding cake. "I read this the day it came out," he said quietly. Something about the way the journalist described your persistence, your joy in the work, the challenges you overcome stuck with me. I couldn't stop thinking about you. Elena traced the edges of the article with her fingertips. She remembered the day vividly. She'd been exhausted, working an 18-hour stretch to finish multiple orders. But the photographer had caught her in a moment of genuine satisfaction. "You kept this?" she asked, her voice softer than she intended. "I've read it more times than I should admit," Adrian replied, a faint, almost nervous smile curving his mouth. "I started looking into your business net as a potential investment, but because I was fascinated by the person running it, the hidden hand." Her mind was already racing when he added, "And there's more." He straightened, running a hand through his hair, subtle sign that the ever-composed Adrian Knight might actually be uneasy. 3 months ago, when you were trying to secure the lease for your 4th location, the landlord was being unreasonable. You were close to walking away." She nodded slowly. Then, out of nowhere, he changed his terms. "Gave me a fair deal." "That was me," Adrian said simply. "I bought the building." Elena blinked, the pieces snapping into place. "You bought the building, not to interfere or take credit," he said quickly. "I just wanted to remove an obstacle you shouldn't have had to fight in the first place. You earned that space with your vision and your work. It should have felt invasive, manipulative even, but instead, there was something disarming about the way he'd done it quietly, without expecting anything in return." Her voice was almost a whisper. "The new commercial ovens, too." The supplier said an anonymous benefactor covered the cost difference for the premium models. A glint of humor touched his eyes. Your old equipment was holding you back. The upgrade made sense. The man behind the gesture. Eleanor shook her head slowly, torn between disbelief and a strange warmth she didn't want to examine too closely. So, you've been quietly supporting my business for months, and tonight was the first time you spoke to me. Tonight was the first time I had a reason to approach you, he said. I've been to your bakery more times than you know. Always found some excuse to leave before talking to you. Pathetic for a man who negotiates billion-dollar deals. The image was almost absurd. Billionaire ducking out of a shop because he couldn't work up the nerve to talk to the owner, but it also tugged at something deep in her chest. So when you offered to be my fake boyfriend tonight, she began. It wasn't fake for me, Adrian admitted, his tone both earnest and unflinchingly honest. Pretending to be yours for an evening was the closest I thought I'd get to the real thing. Her breath caught. When I saw you sitting alone in the garden, looking like the people in that room couldn't see your worth, I wanted to show them they were wrong, he continued. No more pretending. And how exactly were you planning to end this performance? She asked, though she suspected she already knew. I was hoping, Adrian said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, that by the end of the night, it wouldn't be pretending anymore. The air between them shifted. Elena looked at him, this man who had seen her value long before her family ever had, who had championed her dreams without seeking applause, who had risked his reputation to shield her dignity tonight. Are you telling me, she said slowly, stepping closer, that you orchestrated this entire evening because you were too nervous to ask me out? When you put it like that, it sounds ridiculous, he said, leaning toward her. It sounds perfect, she countered. Their kiss came quietly, without audience or pretense, yet it carried the weight of months of unseen connection. His arm slipped around her waist, pulling her close, and for a moment, the rest of the world faded into the background hum of the city. When they broke apart, breathless, the city lights still sparkled, but something fundamental between them had changed. Adrian's forehead rested lightly against hers, their breaths mingling in the cool rooftop air. The quiet felt sacred, as though breaking it too quickly would shatter something fragile but precious. Then he murmured, almost reluctantly, there's something else I planned for tonight. Whether or not you decided to let me stay in your life after this. Her brow arched. That sounds ominous, or suspicious, or both. Instead of answering, he reached into his jacket and checked his phone. A small smile touched his lips. Perfect timing. Come with me. Before she could protest, he laced his fingers with hers and led her back through the hotel's private quarters. Within minutes, they were sliding into the backseat of a sleek black sedan. The driver, a tall man in a crisp suit, closed the door behind them. Where exactly are we going? Eleanor asked, half laughing, half weary. To see what real partnership looks like, Adrian said, offering nothing more. The surprise stop. The city blurred past in streaks of gold and white. 20 minutes later, the car pulled up in front of her newest bakery location. It was dark inside, the front windows reflecting the street lamps sexed for one glaring, glorious exception. A massive banner stretched across the glass facade, illuminated by discreet floodlights. In elegant navy script, the words leapt out at her. Congratulations, Elena Morales, Entrepreneur of the Year. She froze, the sight lodging in her chest like a held breath. What is this? Adrian stepped out of the car and offered her his hand. The Downtown Business Alliance chose you for their annual award. The ceremony's next week, but I thought you should see it tonight when you might need reminding of your worth. Her gaze stayed fixed on the banner as tears welled unexpectedly. After an evening of whispered judgments, pitying glances, and old wounds reopened, here was something irrefutable. Proof. You arranged this, she asked softly. I nominated you, he admitted, but the selection committee didn't need my persuasion. Your innovation, your community work, your growth numbers, these spoke for themselves. A champion in the shadows. The lump in her throat made words hard to form. You've been championing me this whole time, not just tonight. Adrian's expression was warm but steady. I wasn't trying to rescue you, Elena. You were never in need of saving. I just saw the talent and grit everyone else was too distracted to see. She turned back to the banner. It glowed against the night, defiant and proud, as if daring anyone to diminish her again. I don't know what to say, she admitted, blinking back the burn in her eyes. You don't have to say anything. His voice softened. Just keep doing what you do best and maybe let me be there while you do it. The way he said it without expectation, without the heavy-handed promises she'd heard from other men, sent a different kind of warmth through her. Back to the party. When they returned to the hotel, the engagement party had thinned out. The music was quieter now, the guests lingering in small clusters. Adriana found them almost immediately, her face alight with curiosity and joy. There you are, she said, hugging them both. I was starting to think you'd snuck away for good. Carmen was right behind her, but her expression had transformed since earlier in the evening. Gone was the pursed lip look of a mother mentally composing a list of her daughter's supposed failings. Now, she looked proud. Adrian, she said warmly, I hope Eleanor warned you that Sunday dinners are serious affairs. I'll be making my famous tamales. I'm looking forward to it, Adrian replied easily. Though I should warn ya, your daughter's baking has already spoiled me. The compliment made Carmen beam, her attention turning to Elena with something like admiration rather than criticism. Carmen wasn't the only one whose tone had shifted. From across the room, and Isabel approached, her champagne glass held with both hands as if it were a shield. Her husband followed half a step behind, looking equally uneasy. Elena, dear, Isabel began, voice careful, I think I owe you an apology. I spoke without thinking earlier tonight. Your success is well, it's remarkable. You should be proud. The words didn't come easily. Elena could hear the stiffness in them, but they were still more generous than anything her aunt had offered before. Thank you, Aunt Isabel, Elena replied evenly. She didn't offer false modesty. Not tonight. The ex makes his move. The crowd continued to thin, leaving only a few dozen guests in the ballroom when Liam appeared again. This time without Vanessa. His usual smugness was noticeably dimmed. Elena, he said, approaching with an almost hesitant step. I just wanted to say congratulations on everything. She smiled politely. Thank you. I hope you know, he continued, his tone strained, that I always believed in your potential. The timing just wasn't right for us. She felt Adrian's arm tighten slightly at her waist, subtle, protective. The timing, Eleanor said clearly, was perfect. It led me exactly where I needed to be. For a moment, Liam just stood there, his mouth parting as if he might argue. But whatever he saw in her expression, or perhaps in Adrian's calm, unwavering gaze, made him think better of it. He gave a short nod and stepped back, the defeat plain in his shoulders as he walked away. Closing the chapter, Adrian watched Liam retreat, then turned to her with an almost imperceptible smile. That sounded like closure. It was, she said, and for the first time in a long while, she meant it. No lingering doubt, no temptation to wonder what if. Liam belonged in her past, and her future, well, her future was standing right beside her, his hand warm against the small of her back. Love beyond wealth. Later, when the last of the guests had drifted out, and the ballroom staff began clearing away the tables, Adrian offered to drive her home. They slipped into his car, the city lights passing in quiet rhythm as they made their way toward her apartment above the original Sugar and Bloom. When he parked, neither of them moved to get up immediately. I need you to know something, Elena said finally, turning toward him. Tonight was incredible, and I'm grateful for everything you did, but I don't want to be with you because of your money. He shut off the engine and faced her fully. And I don't want to be with you because you need rescuing. I want to be with you because you're brilliant, talented, and stronger than anyone I've ever met. Even when you were sitting alone in that garden, I saw it. You weren't broken. You just refused to compromise your values. The words settled between them like a promise. I think, she said softly, I'm falling in love with you. Not Adrian Knight, the billionaire, just Adrian, the man who's been quietly supporting my dreams And who thinks my chocolate so full is worth walking across a crowded room for? His answering smile was almost blinding in the dim glow from the streetlight outside. The start of something real. So, he said, what happens now? Now, Elena replied, leaning across the console to kiss him softly. We see what happens when two people who are right for each other stop pretending and start building something real. When he walked her to her door, she glanced back once more at the car waiting at the curb. The night had started with her feeling like the odd one out, the family disappointment, but it ended with something far more valuable than wealth or social approval. A partner who saw her worth before or anyone else did, and who would stand beside her as she built her Imperium perfect dessert at a time. The scent of slow-cooked spices drifted from Carmen's kitchen long before Elena and Adrian reached the front door. It was the first Sunday dinner since the engagement party, and the first time Adrian Knight publicly, officially was stepping into her family's home as her boyfriend. Elena hadn't realized how tightly she was holding her breath until Adrian glanced at her as they reached the porch. You're thinking about last week, he said, eyes warm but knowing. Maybe, she admitted. A week ago, they couldn't wait to remind me of my supposed expiration date. Now she hesitated. Now they see you walking in beside me. And it's like the entire narrative's been rewritten. He squeezed her hand. I'm here because of you, Elena, not to be their trophy guest. The new reception. The door swung open to reveal Carmen, her face lit with genuine enthusiasm. Adrian, dear, she said, ushering them inside with an embrace that nearly pulled him off balance. Come in, come in. The tamales are almost ready. Eleanor blinked at her, but Adrian took it in stride, handing Carmen a wrapped box. Brought a little dessert, he said. Thought I'd leave the cooking to the expert. Carmen peeked inside and gasped. Your tarts. Oh, Elena, these are your lavender honey ones. My favorite. A week ago, her mother might have mentioned them as cute little treats. Tonight, she sounded as though they were culinary treasures. Round the table, dinner was served in the Morales family's traditional style, platters in the center, everyone helping themselves. Carmen and Aunt Isabel kept Adrian engaged with questions about his travels, his work ethic, his favorite foods, while carefully circling back to Elena's bakery as if rediscovering it for the first time. This catering division you're adding, and Isabel said, I was telling my friend at the women's club about it. She's dying to hire you for their gala next spring. Eleanor nearly dropped her fork. Isabel's tone was earnest, even proud. That's kind of you to pass along. Adrian caught her eye from across the table, a silent I told you so flickering in his smile. The private moment. Later, after Carmen had insisted they take extra tamales home and the dishes were cleared, Eleanor walked Adrian out to his car. The sun had set, leaving the neighborhood bathed in warm amber from the street lamps. You realize, she said, they're never going to let me live this down. You've completely reset the family dynamic. I didn't do it for them, he replied. I did it so you never have to sit in another room full of people who underestimate you. Her chest tightened at the quiet conviction in his voice. They might be seeing me differently now, but you saw me long before they did, and I'll keep seeing you, he said simply, every day. Looking ahead, she leaned against the car door, the cool metal beneath her palm grounding her in the moment. So, Mr. Knight, what's next? Next, he said, we take that catering division of yours and make it the most sought after in the city. Then maybe you plan a trip. You've been running on overdrive for years. I'd like to see you on a beach somewhere, holding something stronger than a coffee. She laughed, the sound light and unguarded. Dangerous. You keep talking like that, and I might actually start believing you're not going anywhere. He stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I'm not. When he kissed her, it wasn't the heated urgency of the rooftop or the public performance of the garden. It was slow, certain, and laced with the promise of all the tomorrows ahead. That night, as Elena climbed the stairs to her apartment, the smell of her bakery downstairs greeting her like a familiar friend, she realized something. This was no longer about proving herself to her family, her ex, or the social circles that once ignored her. It was about building a life with someone who celebrated her strength, matched her ambition, and believed in her long before anyone else did. And that, she thought with a smile, was the sweetest victory of all. The ballroom of the Grand Meridian Hotel glittered under cascading chandeliers, the same way it had a week earlier at Adriana's engagement. Yet tonight, it was Elena's name on every program, her face on the large display screens at the front. Entrepreneur of the Year, she stood just off stage, smoothing the lines of her deep plum evening gown. Her stomach fluttered with anticipation, nerves, and the dizzy disbelief that she was actually here, being honored not for who she was with, but for what she had built. Adrian's hand found hers, warm and steady. He looked impossibly composed in a black tuxedo, the kind of man who belonged in this world of flashing cameras and whispered introductions. But when he leaned in, his voice was for her alone, ready to knock them sideways. She smiled despite the pounding of her heart. As long as you're not planning to fake boyfriend me again. His grin was quick, boyish, not fake anymore. Remember? The award. Her name was called. Applause swelled, echoing in her ears as she stepped onto the stage. The award felt heavier than she expected in her hands, the crystal catching the light and throwing tiny rainbows onto her dress. She took a breath and looked out over the crowd. Business leaders, media figures, city officials. Somewhere near the center table, Adrian sat, his gaze fixed on her with that same mix of pride and something deeper that still made her chest tighten. Thank you, she began, her voice clear over the microphone. This award isn't just for me. It's for every person who has been told they can't build something because they don't fit the mold. It's for those who work late nights, who hear more no's than yeses, who get dismissed because they don't have the right connections, the right background, the right anything. We build anyway. She paused, scanning the room, letting the words settle. And for me, it's also for the people who stood in my corner when I didn't even realize they were there. Her gaze found Adrian's, and for a moment, it was like they were the only two people in the room. After the stage lights, when the ceremony ended, the press descended, photographers snapping shots of Elena holding her award, reporters asking about Sugar and Bloom's future. Adrian stayed close enough to offer a protective presence without stealing the moment. One reporter, clearly fishing for gossip, asked, "Mr. Knight, what role did you play in Ms. Morel's success?" Adrian's answer was smooth, but there was no mistaking the truth in it. None. She built this on her own. I was just smart enough to notice early on what everyone else was too slow to see. The quote was met with a ripple of surprised murmurs and more camera flashes. Elena squeezed his hand under the table later, gratitude simmering in her chest. The dance. Toward the end of the evening, the band struck up a slow song. Adrian extended his hand, and she let him lead her to the dance floor. As they swayed under the soft light, she felt the weight of the past year-long nights in the bakery, the sting of dismissal from people who thought her ambition was a flaw, the strange twist of fate that had brought him into her life. You do realize, she murmured, that after tonight, there's no hiding from the public eye anymore. I know, he said, a smile touching his lips, but I've never been more certain about who I want beside me when the lights are on. The song wound down, and applause rose again, but Elena barely heard it. The man holding her, the future she could feel unfolding between them, that was what mattered. That night, as they stepped out into the cool city air, the award cradled in her arms and Adrian's hand warm in hers, Elena realized something. The world could call her an entrepreneur, a success story, a headline. He called her Eleanant. That was the title she loved best.